So for our records, which committees do you serve on now, please?
I serve on the Committee of Local Government and Rural Development, the Selection Committee, and Committee of Finance.
Chairman, clearly the nominee will be very, very busy adding all of this to his ministerial responsibilities. But
it is illegal to operate or to pay below minimum wage. I must admit, however, that if you look at the current pay system, even in the public sector, the base pay now is below the minimum wage. But it is also a fact that nobody is paid on the base pay. But
nobody is paid on the national daily minimum wage.
No, what I'm saying is the minimum wage now is higher than the base pay. But it is also a fact that nobody is paid on the base pay.
Nobody is paid below the national daily minimum wage within the.
No, he just alleged that people are being paid below the daily national minimum wage in the private sector. That much, I do not have the facts now. Perhaps when I zoom office and then I begin to work with the various agencies and there are such issues, we will confront the issues squarely. But I must admit that if the law says that if you engage
my second question is a follow-up on the first. I'm saying these are people who are employed, and they are employed as temporary staff. After 6 months by the law, they are supposed to be either be converted to permanent staff or laid off. But they continue year, 2 years, 3 years to be on the same grade and receive a lower pay.
Yeah, those are some of the wrongs in the system. And I think that if you are a worker and you are being subjected to such a treatment, the best thing for you to do is to be able to report to the appropriate authorities. That is why we also have institutions at the ministry to address such issues. So as and when they come to our knowledge, we'll then address them.
Confronting us as a nation, I'd want to find out from you what you will do to alleviate this problem.
Or you want me to answer before you add the other ones? Yes. I think one of the major issues confronting this nation is the issue of unemployment. But perhaps what we have not succeeded in doing is to be able to have data on the unemployed situation in this country. Because if you ask me, how many people are unemployed in Ghana? Perhaps I may not be able to give you the exact figure, except to give you perhaps a percentage. I am told even the last time we had the data on it was in 2014. And as of that time, it was 5.8% of the working population. But I must admit that even the people we claim to be working, in reality, they may not be happy the work they are doing. Perhaps they are only doing it just for survival sake. If you go up north, many of the people there are peasant farmers. They farm only 4 months in a year. After the rainy season, for the rest of the year, they are redundant. Yet, these people, per our classification, we may say they are employed. So seriously, unemployment is a canker. And there are different classes of unemployment. So maybe a particular approach may not be appropriate for one class of people. So in the first place, what we may have to do is to be able to know exactly how the problem is. As we speak, we are trying to, of course, it was started by my predecessor, Honorable Haruna, and I must commend him for that. There's a project at the ministry called Labor Market Information Systems, which is being set up. When that is done, we'll be able to have data on our potential workforce. How many of such people are graduates? How many of them do have technical know-how? How many of them are untrained at all? And what is it that we can be able to do for them? Besides that, even with the unemployment situation, we'll have to look at it from the demographic point of view. For instance, if you go to my region, Brahafo, the unemployment situation there, the type of people who want to work may not necessarily be the same as perhaps that which you will find in Accra. So whereas the people in my region may accept that, yes, we're going to do afforestation, let us enroll in the program. Perhaps if you bring that same afforestation program to Accra, it may not work because the people there may not even be ready, and they may not even be land enough for such a project. So the first point of call is to be able to make sure that we have this labor market information system in place. We have also we have to do a demographic survey of the unemployment situation in the nation so that at least we will know how to address it even per region by region in this nation. And then we'll roll out programs to be able to address them one by one. Of course, in asking of how we're going to address the unemployment situation, you do know that the whole MPP manifesto is centered on job creation. And
Chairperson, since the nominee have raised the MPP manifesto on job creation, may I indulge you? What will you do to create jobs? What will you do to give meaning to the manifesto, to create jobs? Give us practical steps you take to create jobs.
Mr. Chairman.
Honorable nominee, Honorable Minority Leader, in as much as he has spoken to the NPP manifesto and all that, he is to take care of labor employment. I think that he doesn't create jobs and all that. But that notwithstanding, I believe that you can capably answer the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So why did you interject?
Honorable Haruna, you are totally out of order.
we may not necessarily create jobs at the ministry, but we coordinate job creation. And one thing the president told me before he gave me the appointment was that we will have to mainstream job creation in every program of government. For instance, if government is going for credit to do a particular project, we'll have to do what we call job impact assessment of that particular credit. Whoever is sponsoring it should be able to tell government that this particular project I'm bringing will create this number of jobs.
Chairman's permission, Eric and then Helu, and then you determine two on the other side. Then leadership will come in so that we can proceed to consider the other nominees for today. So, Ajua, identify who you want to recognize.
Professionals to be posted and accepted the posting, and then stay at some deprived areas, especially with the health workers in our country.
Mr. Chair, I must admit that we do have scarcity of certain professions, and especially attracting them to less endowed communities sometimes becomes a problem. But I think we may have to work hand in hand with the various district assemblies to upgrade some of the facilities they will use as and when they are posted there. Besides that, if you take the education sector, for instance, they have packages which are given to teachers who accept postings to rural areas. And I think that should be replicated in almost all other sectors. Because if we want to create an open leverage for every Ghanaian to access services, then perhaps we may have to, as a matter of urgency, to look at how best we will incentivate those who will accept postings to less endowed communities.
Thank you. What should Ghanaians labor force expect new from you?
That this ministry is very challenging, but I don't believe so. I believe that every ministry is equally challenging. And even if it's challenging, the work ought to be done, and it must be done by somebody. So I accept it in good faith to live up to expectation. But my attitude and my approach to workers is that I am going to approach them with good faith. I will respect them, and I will expect them to also reciprocate the respect that I accord them. I will act, or I will deal with them, as I said, in good faith. I will respect them. I will make sure that I empathize with them. Sometimes that is where we fail. We fail to put ourselves in the shoes of those workers, and we assume that because we are in government, whatever we say they should take. No, it shouldn't be so. We should give them hearing. We should put ourselves in their place and appreciate their program, and then be able to come out with programs that will also let them also accept our. I must admit that sometimes government is constrained because of financial problems and what have you, but that does not mean that we should disrespect labor. I am not going to do that.
Letting you leader.
Thank you. Honorable he was contesting it. That's why he was saying that you should have rather said former leader, but not current leader.
I want to bring your mind to where Neil Ante, one of his questions on casualization, but he focused on the wages and salaries. I'm coming from a constituency that is the citadel of industrialization in this country. Casuals, when you go through the Labor Act 651 of 2003, when you work for a period of time, you need to be regularized. But you have in this country where people have worked for over 10 years, 12 years, or more, and they continue to be casual the rest of their lives. And when you go to Panya Food Cannery, it's an example. When you go to the banks, it's very prevalent over there. May I find out from you, what are you going to do to make sure that these hard-working workers from these institutions are regularized? Because you cannot be casual all your life to pension. And it's an infringement on the Act.
Is your question answered?
Yeah,
no, please let him answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I had provided an answer to this earlier on. What I said was that if you are in a situation and you do not allow people to know that this is the situation that I find myself, it will be very difficult for somebody to imagine what kind of problems you have. We have offices that are responsible in addressing some of these problems. The labor office is there. Unfortunately, in the case of TEMA, even though I must admit that we have difficulty in maintaining our offices throughout the country, but in the case of TEMA specifically, we have an office there. So if there are any such issues, my little advice to the affected workers is to just walk straight to the labor office, make a complaint there, and then the complaint will be investigated. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My predecessor initiated an action to bring a bill to Parliament on occupational health and safety issues. Unfortunately, the immediate past Parliament could not attend to it for want of time. I will make sure that this bill is re-looked, if possible, with a few additions and perhaps subtractions, and brought back to Parliament through Cabinet to address this particular problem, because occupational health and safety issues are very core to the development of industrialization in every country. if you do not heed to issues of occupational health and safety, you end up paying workman's compensation, which is even higher. If this bill should go through, it is estimated that about 10,000 jobs can be created to take care of this particular aspect of work that we are talking of. Because I am told that we have over 10,000 businesses that recruit more than 25 people in this country. And if we insist in the bill that for any company employing more than 25 people, you should at least have an officer designated, a trained officer designated for occupational health and safety. If we implement that, I'm telling you, we can employ 10,000 graduates with science background just by implementing that particular law.
Mr. Chairman, I'm done.
So we'll take Honorable Ablakwa.
Do with the financial clearance, which has been granted a number of sectors. I do recall before we left the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Finance granted us financial clearance to engage 22,000 workers, staff for the Ghana Education Service. I am also aware that the Ministry of Health put in a financial clearance for 17,000 staff, nurses and doctors, because of the new hospitals that we built all over the country, the new schools for the GES, as I said earlier. How are you going to work with the Minister of Finance to engage these staff, these thousands of staff who ought to be engaged because of vacancies in the system? And how do you pledge to ensure that these recruitment processes are very transparent and fair to all Ghanaians?
I will start with where you ended. There are certain fields of occupation that you cannot do anything about except to ensure that at least standards are met. For instance, if you want to recruit somebody as a nurse, you can't just go out there and pick anybody at all. You would need somebody that has been certified by the Nurses and Midwives Council as a trained nurse. So if you go by that, then perhaps you will be fair to everybody. Because the only criteria will be the certificate that you hold. And I want to assure you that that will certainly be done. But with regards to financial clearance, normally clearance is given and then it is matched with job vacancies. You'll recall that even with our program with IMF, the only exception that we had was that, yes, you cannot employ except in health and education. So if indeed there are vacancies and there are also people who are ready to do the work, why don't we continue? We'll have to continue if only they do much. But sometimes some of the organizations which recruit, I must admit that they are not necessarily the people who pay them. So sometimes there is a mismatch. Yes, education, for instance, may say that, yes, we have to get additional 50,000 teachers. But maybe in Ministry of Finance's own planning, they may have projected for, say, only 20,000. So in that case, if you recruit 50,000 and they are ready for 20,000, you have an excess of 30,000 that they are not ready for. And that is why sometimes you have delays in payment of people who are engaged to do specialized works like teachers and what have you. So what we may have to do is to insist that whenever we have clearance, that we recruit to equate the number of people that you have been cleared to recruit.
My second question will be a follow-up to an answer you gave to the question from Honorable Helu on the mistreatment of Ghanaian workers by experts. You did answer the first part, which has to do with the rights of Ghanaian workers, that we should educate them on their rights and all of that. But there's another aspect which has to do with support services to these victims when they have been brutalized. How can your ministry move in to support them, legal assistance, following through to ensure that sanctions are really meted out, that the court, if they have to be charged. I can give you 2 examples. There was the Peter Pan restaurant where a Korean slapped a Ghanaian supervisor with hot pizza. Then there was this Italian company, Gateway Logistics, April last year, where an Italian chained a Ghanaian because he says the Ghanaian worker was loitering about. These are instances that the ministry must, and we all must be seen supporting these victims all the way through so that sanctions are meted out to those who set out to victimize, to brutalize, and to abuse Ghanaian workers. What commitment can we get from you when you get to the ministry to ensure that you offer support services to these victims?
Our men at the Labor Department are trained to handle such issues. So if such issues are reported to them, they will be in a position to assist them. Sometimes the cases may not even end at our end, but they may help them. If they want the case to perhaps proceed to SHRAG, they will assist them. If they have to go to the courts, they will help them to be able to get help to be able to pursue their case in even the courts.
Mr. Chairman, my last question has to do with this creeping culture of proceed on leave. Yesterday, we woke up to reports that 11 senior management members of Cocoa Board have been asked to proceed on leave. Another 3 senior managers of the cocoa marketing company were also asked to proceed on leave. And sometimes these proceed on leave directives, the workers will be on leave sometimes 4 years, 8 years, until there is a change in government. And sometimes we continue to pay these people at the expense of the taxpayer. And we can cite examples. And I think that all the political traditions probably are guilty of this. As employment and labor relations minister to be, what would be your advice if we give you the nod to His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo about this culture of proceed on leave, which drains the taxpayers' scarce resources of our country, and which really does not order well for the world of work, where people are just shoved aside and very qualified, very dedicated workers are just asked to stay at home. What really is your view on this culture, and what will be your advice to President Nana-Addo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, it is for some of these reasons. That is why we should try as much as possible to depoliticize the public sector. There are certain jobs that are purely skilled. You require a particular skill to be able to do that particular work. So if it is advertised and you go, one will expect that you do your work without any political interference or whatsoever. But in practice, let's face it, we are all politicians. Sometimes we politicians also push some of these civil servants and public servants to toe our way, and therefore bringing them more or less to be politicians as well. A president, when he assumes office, comes with an agenda. So if you're a public officer and you have demonstrated by your actions that, I believe in this party's manifesto, I'm working for them, I am prepared, to use the word, go all way to support that particular party, then perhaps you may have missed the point. So much as we'll try to advise the appointees to be apolitical as possible, then we also have to advise whoever is appointed there to also meddle, not to meddle himself or herself in partisan politics. If you appointed a director of, say, Cocoa Board, as you used as your example, and then you end up being a political advocate of a particular party? How do you expect an incoming or another government to work with you when they know very well that your belief is contrary to their belief?
In fact, that person you met came to my constituency to campaign for my opponent.
Chairman.
Oh, so the chairman is justifying.
Chairman is pouring his emotions. Chairman is pouring his.
The chairman.
I'm not talking about the chief executive.
Okay, no, but
no,
Sammy.
I'm talking about.
Sammy, I'll help you after.
Yeah, the public servants.
Deputy. Colleagues. Chairman, I'm sure it's now my opportunity as ranking member to welcome and congratulate Ignatius Baffour Awuah and to wish him well. Chairman, I may preface my question with a comment since I just walked out of the shoes in which he will be attempting to put his feet. Your success will measure the success of President Nana Akufo-Addo. Let me assure you that I left the ministry better than it has been since its creation, and therefore it is no longer a Siberia, yes, on authority, it's no longer a Siberia ministry. There were days that you had difficulty how to keep the ministry running. I see Longman, Atakuma, and Ankobia all supporting you. So I wish you well. But just to the Honorable Ablakwe's question, will you respect contracts and will you ensure that public institutions respect contracts? For instance, Cocoa Board, Ghana Gas, Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority, in their appointment letters, if you want to terminate an appointment, you must do it by notice. And in many instances, you must buy the period for which you don't want the person to work for whatever reason. So you can't just wake up because there is a change in government and because you are a new CEO, then you go on proceed on leave. So beyond proceed on leave, we need your assurance that all public institutions will respect the right of workers and respect employment contracts. Will you do that?
Assuring you I will do that. But let me also say that contract has rules and responsibilities of parties to the contract. If perhaps it is not within your mandate as chief executive of company A to engage in partisan politics, and you do, it means that you may also have gone against the terms of your contract, and in that case you may have to be fired. It depends. Mr. Chairman, let me simply say that it depends on what the dictates of the contract is. If the contract say do A and you go by it, then I will side with you. Under no circumstance will anybody support the idea that you should side.
You're still missing my question. By the Transition Act, there is a schedule of CEOs who must go with any arrangement. I'm talking about normal employment, like the Cocoa Board example. When you have your contract of employment, it says that you are employed for this period, some within the public service up to 60 years. I even know instances like NVTI, National Board for Small Scale Industry, Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. There are public service institutions that this proceed on leave is beginning to affect. Will you support that?
Let me put it in a context. It would not be fair for me to give a blanket answer that I will accept that or not. We may have to look at each case on the merit of it.
Satisfied. CEO, I have no difficulty. And as Minister for Employment, let me share this with you. In Ghana, when I used to be minister, there were times that as minister, you say at the end of this month, we'll withhold salaries of doctors or pharmacists or nurses. Don't forget they have families. And don't forget they have livelihoods to look after. Therefore, the man you are asking to go home without notice has a family. I'm just saying that not chief executive, ordinary people who are being asked to go home without respect to their employment contract. I have a difficulty with us not respecting that.
Mr. Chairman, I do know that there are people that have been sacked from their various jobs. They have contested it in court and have been reinstated. What I'm trying to say is that each case may have to be looked at on its own merit. If indeed somebody is sacked wrongly, I don't see why the person should not look for an opportunity for a redress.
So what help will you give?
But I do agree with you that such things are a culture that we should not encourage, because I made an earlier point that we should try as much as possible to depoliticize public service. If we do that, these things will not happen.
One of the things you will inherit is the management of second-tier pensions. And again, as I indicated, pensions used not to be under the remit of the Ministry of Employment and Labor until President Mahama shifted same from the Ministry of Finance to the Ministry of Employment and Labor. You have 12 workers' union who have over 2 billion pension funds sitting. I'm sure you've read the handing over notes. I describe unemployment in my handing over notes. Have you read it?
I have read portions of it, not all.
I describe unemployment in a personal note to you as a national security crisis. Do you agree or not?
I agree 100%.
What will you do to address it?
I thought you were making reference to pension and then you've moved to unemployment. Because I don't know which one to relate my answer to unemployment or to pension.
To unemployment, I'll come back to pensions. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, in the course of the vetting, you stepped out, so perhaps you may not be privy to questions which came during the time you were out. I think somebody asked this same question, that what are we going to do about unemployment? I stated that first we may have to look at the magnitude of the problem itself. What is its nature? As we speak, we do not have that much information on the nature of unemployment in this particular in this country. Besides that, even after knowing the numbers, we may also have to do a demographic analysis of what can be done for a particular group of people in a particular area of this country. When that is done, we'll be able to roll out programs to address each of the problem or category that we find.
Chairman, you would also note that there is a position paper on maternity protection. Many of our women have difficulty in the workplace how to breastfeed a baby, whether in the public or public sector, when they go on maternity leave, even the duration of the leave. When will you bring the ILO Convention on the maternity protection to Parliament for ratification?
I expect to do that within the the first quarter of this year.
You also are aware that we were processing, in consultation with the Attorney General and the Minister for Interior, and in particular Minister for Gender, domestic workers regulation, which will respect the rights of young persons recruited for persons of domestic, because there are abuses and very inhumane and degrading treatment of that category of people, particularly those of them who export services to the Arab Gulf. When should we expect you to bring the regulations to the Parliament for the Subsidiary Legislation Committee to look at?
Mr. Chair, I must confess I do not know exactly the level it has reached, but I am aware that it is one of the bills the ministry is looking at. And it is not just about the plight of domestic workers. It is even about us accepting domestic work as work, because people are engaged in domestic work thinking that it is just perhaps a way of life or something of the sort. But it is about time we accept the fact that domestic work is a work and it must be seen even as a profession. So certainly we'll bring it, but I can't be exact as to when we'll bring it here because I do not know the level where it's rated.